Hey everyone, welcome back for another deep dive. This time, we're going to tackle someone who's been called, well, the greatest thinker of antiquity. That's right, we're talking about Plato.
Plato, a big name, and for good reason, right? I mean, his ideas, they still resonate today, in how we organize our societies, how we try to figure out what knowledge really is. It's all connected.
Yeah, and to really dig into this, we've got some fascinating selections from Os Pensadores Platon, a collection that gives us a glimpse into his take on Athenian democracy, his theory of forms, the whole deal with his dialogues.
And what we're aiming for here is to connect these ancient ideas to, well, our world now. Like, can we have those aha moments when we see how Plato's insights on government, knowledge, appearance versus reality, can those help us navigate the 21st century?
Right, because it's easy to think, oh, ancient Greece, that's so far removed, but
Yeah.
there's a surprising amount that still applies, so let's jump in.
Let's. And a good place to start is with Plato's critique of Athenian democracy. Now, what's really interesting here is how he saw the rise of rhetoric.
Rhetoric. The art of persuasion,
Hmm.
right, wasn't just about official positions. It was about who could speak the best, who could sway the crowd. Like Pericles, you mentioned him, a leader who rose to power largely because he was a master of rhetoric.
Exactly. And here's the thing. Plato pointed out this sort of contradiction within Athenian democracy itself. The Democrats, they were so focused on not letting the aristocracy, the old power structures, come back to. They were afraid of lifelong rulers, hereditary positions, all that.
So they were so worried about concentrated power.
That they ended up creating a system that, in a way, worked against itself.
So how did that actually play out? Like, what were the real-world consequences of this?
Well, instability, for one. Plato saw that debates, decisions, they were constantly shifting depending on who was the most persuasive speaker at that moment. It wasn't always about the best ideas winning, but rather the most skillful orator.
I see. So the focus shifted from the substance of the argument to the style of its delivery.
Yes, and on top of that, the short terms of public office, those made it almost impossible to create any long-term policies, any real consistency.
Yeah, if you're constantly swapping people in and out of power, it's tough to get anything substantial done, to have a long-term vision. And I know Plato looked at other systems, right? Compared Athens to other Greek city-states.
Absolutely. He contrasted Athens with its emphasis on freedom to the perceived stability of Egypt or the strict militaristic society of Sparta. While Athens championed individual liberty, some at the time saw the order and stability of Egypt and Sparta, even at the cost of freedoms, as perhaps better solutions.
Interesting. Okay, so we have this backdrop of Plato's critique of Athenian democracy, and then he emerges as a key figure, right?
Mhm.
But his philosophy, it wasn't just some theoretical exercise, was it?
No, not at all. For Plato, philosophy and political action, they were completely intertwined. He believed that society's problems wouldn't truly be solved unless philosophers ruled or rulers became philosophers themselves. This idea really drove a lot of his work.
And it seems like his ideas weren't just influenced by politics. You talk about the impact of mathematical irrationals on his concept of just measure. That's not a connection you hear every day.
Right. But it's a profound one. So these mathematical irrationals, like pi, you can't express them perfectly with whole numbers. They go beyond language. And this, for Plato, suggested a kind of just measure, an ultimate standard that exists beyond words. This idea of a deeper truth beyond language that becomes central to his philosophy.
And in his early works, the Socratic dialogues, we see him exploring these ideas through Socrates, his mentor. The Apology, of course, is a key text, Socrates defending himself. But you also mentioned other dialogues that tackle political issues head-on.
Exactly. Dialogues like Charmides directly address political problems, while Gorgias, Protagoras, and the Hippias dialogues, those really dive into the power of rhetoric, how it can be used for good or bad, its role in ethics and education. All these early dialogues, they lay the groundwork for his later, more developed theories.
And then we get to the founding of the Academy in Athens, right around 387 BCE. This wasn't just another school.
No, it was a landmark moment. The Academy makes Plato the first head of a real, dedicated institution for scientific and philosophical research. Its impact on Western thought is immeasurable.
But even with the Academy, even with this commitment to philosophy, Plato still got pulled back into politics. He went to Syracuse twice to advise Dionysius I and then Dionysius II. Why?
It goes back to that core belief we talked about, that real change happens when rulers embrace wisdom and justice. In a system where one person holds the power, convincing that person seemed like the most direct path to ideal governance. He believed that if he could persuade the ruler, the whole state could be guided toward a more just existence. An ideal, maybe, but a powerful one.
Yeah, it's like if you can change the person at the top, everything else will follow. A bit optimistic, maybe,
Yeah.
looking back? And things didn't quite work out for him in Syracuse, did they?
No, they didn't. His efforts there ultimately failed. And around this time, even his own philosophical framework faced scrutiny. You mentioned the crisis in the Parmenides dialogue, the challenges to the theory of forms.
Right. So what was this crisis, and did Plato just abandon his theory?
Well, in the Parmenides, we see these strong objections raised against the forms. But importantly, Plato doesn't give up on the idea. Instead, the dialogue pushes him to refine and strengthen his theory. It forces him to think harder about the connection between the eternal forms and the constantly changing world we experience. It shows his intellectual honesty, actually, that he was willing to engage with these criticisms.
And this leads us to the Theaetetus dialogue, which critiques the idea that knowledge is just sensation, just what we perceive with our senses. How does this connect back to the forms?
The Theaetetus goes right to the heart of what is knowledge. Plato dismantles the idea that knowledge is simply perception, the truth is what seems true to you, kind of thinking. He argues that real, solid knowledge needs a stronger foundation, and that's where the forms come in. The world of our senses, it's always changing, always in flux. It can't be the basis for true, lasting knowledge.
It's like trying to build a house on shifting sand.
Exactly. So let's talk about the forms themselves. This is the core of Plato's philosophy, but it can be tough to grasp. So what are the forms?
Yeah, break it down for us.
Okay, imagine the most perfect version of something, say a circle. Every circle you've ever seen drawn, even imagined, it's just an imperfect copy. There's this ideal circle, the perfect essence of circularity itself. That's what Plato means by a form. Forms are not physical, you can't see them or touch them, but they're more real, in a way, than physical objects. They're eternal, unchanging, unlike the things in our world that come and go.
So the forms are like these ultimate blueprints, and everything we experience is just an imperfect copy trying to live up to that perfect ideal.
Yes, that's a great way to put it. The forms are the models, the paradigms, and the things we see and touch, those are just imitations, participating in the forms to different degrees. Think of a chair. It's a chair because it participates in the form of chairness, even if it's wobbly or a different style than other chairs.
I say. And where does the world we experience, the physical world, actually come from in this view? You mentioned a demiurge in the Timaeus dialogue. What's that all about?
Ah, yes. In the Timaeus, Plato presents his cosmology, his explanation of the universe. He says the world is created by a divine craftsman, the demiurge. But it's not a creator in the traditional sense. Think of it more like a supremely skilled artisan who takes this pre-existing formless matter and shapes it according to the forms, using them as blueprints. So our world is like an imitation, though imperfect, of the world of the forms.
Okay, so like a divine artist working from these perfect templates. And you also talk about human art, how it produces real objects and images of those objects. How does that fit in?
It's a neat analogy. Plato says, just as the demiurge creates things like trees and also images of those things, like a reflection in water, human art does something similar, but one step further removed. A carpenter makes a table, but a painter can make an image of that table on canvas. Both the table and the painting are a step away from the form of tableness. The painting, even more so, an imitation of an imitation.
Now, mathematics plays a big role in understanding the world, according to Plato. But it's not the highest form of knowledge. Why not?
That's a good question. Plato valued math, saw it as crucial for understanding order and structure in the world, but math, for him, is still tied to the world of the senses. Mathematical objects, while abstract, they're still dealt with in terms of multiples, many threes, many types of triangles, and we often visualize them, use diagrams, so there's still a connection to our sensory experience.
So math, while more abstract than just looking at objects, it's still dealing with representations. What's beyond that, then?
Beyond math is what Plato calls noesis. This is the direct, intuitive grasp of the essence of the forms themselves, not just multiple threes, but the essence of threeness. Not different triangles, but triangularity itself.
I see. So how do we reach this noesis? What's the path to the forms?
Dialectic. That's the method, according to Plato. It's a process of questioning, logical argument, challenging assumptions. It's about stripping away superficial understanding to get to the deeper truth, the essence. It's through this intellectual journey that we can hopefully reach the forms and attain true knowledge.
This is all fascinating. But these are ancient texts passed down over centuries.
Oh, yeah.
How do we even know what Plato actually wrote? You mentioned the challenges of transmission and interpretation.
Absolutely. Reconstructing Plato's writings is a huge task. Our main sources are medieval manuscripts, and those are copies of older versions. We have a lot of them, but their accuracy varies a lot. So textual critics, they compare them, classify them, try to figure out the most reliable versions.
Sounds like a lot of detective work.
It is. And we're not just limited to medieval manuscripts. We have papyrus fragments, older pieces, and quotes from Plato in other ancient writings. Plus, modern textual criticism, using more advanced methods, helps us identify and correct errors that might have crept in over time.
So scholars are using all these clues to get as close to Plato's original words as possible. What are some of their key methods?
One is trying to reconstruct the archetype, the hypothetical original manuscript from which all our copies descended. By looking at the relationships between manuscripts, shared errors, unique readings, scholars group them into families, tracing them back to variations that probably existed in the archetype. And in modern editions of Plato, variations in the archetype are often noted because they can sometimes represent the most authentic ancient tradition. Scholars like Hélène, with his Histoire du texte de Platon, have really advanced our understanding of this.
And then once you have a reliable text, you still have to translate it,
Hmm.
which is especially difficult with philosophy.
Right. Translating Plato isn't just substituting words. You have to convey subtle meanings, complex grammar, cultural context that might not have easy equivalents in another language. Like you mentioned, the symposium, the banquet, that dialogue needs a lot of explanation for modern readers.
Yeah, ancient Greek thinking is so different from ours. It's not just language, it's a whole different way of seeing the world.
Exactly. A good translation tries to capture the spirit of the original while using the translator's own language naturally. It's a balancing act, like that story in the symposium where Socrates gets lost in thought and just stands still, as told by Aristodemus. That little detail shows us something about Socrates' character, but a translator might need to explain it to help a modern reader understand its significance.
So taking it all in, what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
We've seen Plato's sharp critique of Athenian democracy, the power of rhetoric, the difficulties of political stability. We explored the theory of forms, this realm of perfect essences that underlies our imperfect world. And we touched on the complexities of transmitting and translating his works across millennia.
So much to think about. And as we wrap up this deep dive, here's a final thought for you all. In our world today, where we're bombarded with information, how do Plato's ideas about knowledge versus rhetoric apply? Is it even harder now to tell the difference between genuine understanding and persuasive but misleading arguments? And does Plato's distinction between the world of the senses and the world of the forms give us any insights into how we understand truth and reality today? Big questions.
Absolutely. We encourage you to explore Plato's dialogues for yourselves, see what resonates with you. The links in the show notes are a great starting point. Dive in.